You and I are both teenagers. So when we are asked the question, what do you think real happiness is? What are we going to answer? Money, power, fame, and sex. These are the four things that teenagers most commonly answer to that specific question. And why do we answer this? It is because it is the quick fix of life. We think that these are the instantaneous things that can bring us the happiness that we want. However, I guess we both realize that it is lonely at the top. And once you get to the top of the pyramid, whether it be fame or status or money, people don't approach you anymore. Your friends seemed fake. And everyone you used to love seemed to approach you with a different gaze. And for every successful person out there, they always say that it's not worth it to be famous, to have high status, because everyone leaves you. I'm going to present to you a Harvard study today, but I'm also going to present to you my take on happiness and why, in such a paradoxical question, I think there is light at the end of the tunnel. There was a Harvard study that was done in 1930s or 1940s, and it lasted 75 years till this day. This Harvard study studied 750 people from Harvard University back in the World War II era to local Boston people who were very poor and who didn't have good lives. They studied these men all the way from when they were in their teens, in their 20s, to all the way now in their 90s. There's only 60 participants who are still living, but they are still sending out them forms asking them about their life, how happy they are, what are they feeling on a daily basis, what is their relationship like, do they drink alcohol, all these factors, and they assimilated all these things into one study. And what does the study conclusion tell us? Well, it's very interesting. They found out that no matter where you started from, whether you were a Harvard student, whether you were rich, whether you were poor, you end up having a similar life path. The poor happens sometimes even to rise up. The rich happens to sometimes to drop down to poor. So it really didn't matter where you started off from. But they had three conclusions about what all these people felt in common about happiness in their late 70s, 80s, when they can genuinely look back on their lives and be like, was I a happy man? All these three things stem from the idea of social connection. The first one is the fact that loneliness kills. They found out that people who were often more lonely, who didn't have a partner or didn't have a big family or friend group, they oftentimes die earlier because they are more prone to things like depression, to suicide, and it just makes it so much harder for the mental state for a person to keep on living and keep on being happy without the company of other people. What they also found out is that good relationships make healthy lives and they make happy people. Because imagine if you and your wife are like having like a relationship, right? And what if you and your wife actually just don't sleep with each other on the same bed? You actually don't talk to each other because you guys got something like going on in your relationship. Imagine if you're divorced. These are the things that really take a toll on your mental state. And it proves in the study that the people who are in their 70s, 80s, who actually still have functioning relationships and who have loving husbands and wives, these are the people who are proven to be more happy. And lastly, secure attachment is proven to be more healthy. And what is secure attachment? It's one of the things where you have complete faith and trust into your husband and wife. And in this scenario, you would be open to telling them everything about your life, whether it be your hardships, whether it be your daily dealings, anything. And having this type of communication also shows us the importance of social connection and how it makes people happy. However, I don't exactly agree with the idea of the Harvard study for happiness. The central idea of the Harvard study is that social connection, good social connection, makes people happy. However, I think we have to take a step back and realize there's always a paradoxical thing to this. Because they did the experiment in America. They did the experiment in one of America's wealthiest cities, which is Boston. And I think we need to take a step back here. Because not all relationships are chosen by people themselves. In a lot of countries in the Middle East, relationships are actually chosen by their parents. and they were chosen maybe when the son was 10, maybe when the daughter was 9, and they were betrothed to other people, and they had to marry them. And these oftentimes led to very severely terrible marriages. And in these Middle Eastern countries, misogyny is so common, so the man just beats his wife and stuff, and that genuinely doesn't lead to a good relationship. So that off the bat shows us that, hey, maybe that kind of happiness does not work for every single person. Because if we're trying to find out some universal law for happiness, we should surely account for the countries that are misogynistic and where people can genuinely find happiness, right? I think we also have to look into the fact, what have we been told about happiness? I think all great philosophers told us that happiness is freedom. There's a Greek term called a bacchanal. It's also an English term because it's derived from the Greek god Bacchus, which is also known as the Greek god Dionysus. This god is the god of wine and partying. And a bacchanal is basically one of these things that they used to do in ancient Greece, where everyone would take off their clothes, they would be naked, they would drink, they would have sex, they would do everything in their power to completely lose themselves, to have actual freedom. But what have we come to know in today? These kind of freedom is not the freedom we're actually looking for. Because these kind of freedom, we completely lose ourselves, right? We lose ourselves in the moment, we lose our mind, we lose our sanity. But these are the kind of like bad dopamine that we associate in daily life. Because we also get a similar sense of bad dopamine when we're watching like TikTok or we're watching Instagram, because we are completely brain dead. We are brainless in this moment. And in this moment, we completely forget about all our worries. However, when we come back to the present, that's oftentimes when we get a sense of depression, because we had such a big high, but the high doesn't last. And the high doesn't make you feel accomplishment, because you are doing things such as like drinking and sex that are actually not good for your body. We also have to account for the things such as freedom that cannot be obtained by people. Remember at the start how we talked about fame, power, money, and sex were the most important things that teenagers strive for. That is because we have a type of survival mindset. A lot of us out there might not be able to pay their rent, might not be able to pay their bills, so that's why money means so much to them. You see, people who don't have to worry about these kind of things, who don't have to worry about the lack of money, who don't have to worry about the lack of power because they're being abused, these are the people who have the privileges to enjoy the things that are preached, such as meditation, right? They get to calm their minds. But imagine the people who do not have the initial freedom to do that. They don't get to feel the same type of like meditation happiness that you can feel because you're in a privileged position. Imagine them having like 3 children screaming at them and the person outside the door screaming at them for them to pay their bills. Like the single mother cannot do anything to obtain happiness in that scenario. So at the end of the day, the paradox comes down to, if secure attachment is not happiness, if money, fame, power, sex does not come down to happiness, if even the most preached and most fundamental human aspect of freedom does not equal happiness, what do I think is happiness? Well, I think happiness is gratitude. And you might think, oh, this is woo-woo, this is like cap. But I think the most powerful thing is not to search for something. You see, when we're searching for fame, money, power, sex, we're searching for a drug, right? We're searching for that instant high. When we search for that bacchanal, when we search for the meditation, when we search for the freedom, we're also searching for an instant high. We're searching for a loss of self. And when we are searching for secure attachment, sure, we're not searching for an instant high, a prolonged high, but we're also looking for something. I feel like when we are looking for something, that is to the detriment of the human soul. Because rather than looking for something, what we should do is to embrace everything around us. I think to accept our current state, obviously for some people it's much harder than others because they got burdens and familial troubles and social like relationship troubles. But I think the act of embracing is so powerful. I think realizing everything that you have right now, maybe you should just realize that you have electricity right now up in the ceiling, whereas maybe hundreds of thousands out there don't. It's also seeing gratitude in the people around you. Hey, maybe you got one of these like deep relationships that you really love your woman, or maybe you really love your friend or your family. These are the gratitude that we can preach right now. Happiness should be able to be attained right now. And what I want to leave you is this gratitude practice that I found so inspirational. If you want to check out a book, check out The Magic by Rhonda Byrne. You might think that it's a woo-woo book, you might think it's preaching absolute bullshit, but I can tell you that it actually works. Read the book, implement it. But the best practice from the book that I've come to summarize is this practice called magic footsteps. Einstein said 100 years back that he would wake up and take 100 footsteps every single day, and he would say, thank you, thank you, thank you. I want you to take 100 footsteps today and say, thank you, thank you, thank you. And during each footstep, I want you to think about something that you are grateful for. It's the single greatest gift of happiness that I can leave you with today. And I hope that I have cleared up some of your concerns, questions, interests about the paradox of happiness. Thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.